This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Oh, welcome to UFO Classified. I'm Erica Lukes. Always happy to be here with my friends. I want to give a big shout out to Dave, Doug, Jono, Lib, Northern UFOs, who is a big, huge supporter of the show. And I want to thank him for everything that he does to keep the show running and get the word out about how to support the show and get the word out on YouTube. That means the world to me. I appreciate all of your support and love. I get a lot of messages from people all over the world. And now that NASA's Unexplained Files made its debut for the new season, I should be hopefully getting a lot more messages from people and exposing them to, in my opinion, one of the only shows next to Radio Mysterioso that is dedicated to getting out good information and educating people on how to not only look at the history of the subject, to remember researchers who dedicated their lives to preserving an important subject, and also educating yourself on the absolute nonsense that takes place in this field. And as you know, the past couple months, I've been really, really focused on exposing people who are not truthful with their credentials, and also people who engage in a bullying type mentality. I think that this is very detrimental to the subject. And now, unlike anything we've ever seen, this has really ramped up. So I reached out to Royce Myers, who was my guest this evening. And I remember when I first publicly got into this subject, I looked at Royce and I looked at UFO Watchdog, and I thought, okay, this guy, I don't know what, he's a little spicy. He might have, he might be a debunker. I did not appreciate what he was doing until I really understood the gravity and got in there and was exposed to the levels of delusion and the corruptness that has been dominating this field. And so I am grateful that he's going to be here, because he has exposed people that really are pretty despicable human beings. And I want to, more than anything, expose you to things so you know what to look for when you're reaching out to different Facebook communities and reaching out to researchers, just to open your eyes and to look critically at what and who you're dealing with. And that's important. So from what I understand on the internet, Royce is definitely somebody who is debunking things, and he sounds like he sold himself to the company store, as the old saying goes. And people hopes that there's a quote on his website from somebody, Dolores Hart. I'm sure that's really her name. Sounds like you may be working for a debunker group, sold yourself to the company store, as the old saying goes. Well, I hope you make lots of money out of your prepared scripts. Well, I've been receiving messages like that all week. And then another message from Jason. I'm sure your government handlers are proud. Keep up the good disinformation work. And so I have to talk about that. This is going to be a fun show tonight. But my guest this evening, Royce Myers, has an educational and occupational background in law enforcement and crime scene investigation. Becoming interested in the UFO subject in the early 90s, he quickly found the field rife with frauds and publicity seekers after attending his first UFO conference. In 1998, when the web was still fairly new, Myers began investigating and unmasking paranormal frauds, and then created UFOWatchdog.com. The website's motto is "Don't trip on an open mind." And sweet baby Joseph, let me tell you, I'm so glad to find kindred spirits. Because, I mean, Royce, welcome to the show, first of all. Thank you for agreeing to be here. I know you've kind of backed away from this, as I think we all need to do for mental reasons. But, I mean, thank you for doing what you've done. I know that it hasn't been easy, or at least I would imagine.
No, a lot of it had not. There were a lot of bumps along the way and a lot of problems, and yeah, it's been an experience, and I feel like I've really learned a lot from it, for sure.
Well, the important thing I want to stress to my audience is that my guest this evening has had experiences, and that's why, and you can tell us about that, but correct me if I'm wrong, you initially became interested in the subject because of a personal sighting.
Yeah. So this is going way back to March of '94. It was really late at night. Me and my best friend were heading back to his house. We're going to go play some cards and hang out. And during that time, I was, roaming around pool halls and, playing cards and hanging out and really not doing much of anything with my life at the time. And I was in my very early 20s, very early 20s. Anyway, we're driving, and this is in a town in Southern Oregon, a very, very small place, and wound up stopping at a red light in the middle of the night, and I could have ran it, but, with my luck, I was thinking, well, there's probably a cop sitting around a corner in an alley. I'm going to run that light. He's going to pull me over. I'm going to get a ticket. So we just stood there, and the light was unusually long, and I caught something out of the corner of my eye over a building. And my friend turned and looked, and he said, "What is that?" Not in those words. And we both just sat there and watched it. And I really can't tell you how long we watched it for. It wasn't very long. It was, I don't even want to try and put an estimate on it. It was so long ago. And this thing shot up, did a rotating 360, and sped off. And I was flabbergasted by the whole thing. And at the time, I was driving a pretty fast car, and I got on a highway and tried to catch up, but no luck. We could see it flying off in the distance, and then it was just gone. And that's how the whole thing got started for me.
And so you had an experience like a lot of us do that get into this subject, and then you felt like it deserved to be looked at. And so what, after you had the experience, what happened next as far as your involvement or educating yourself?
Well, let me back it up really quick, because that was the first thing that happened. 3 nights later, I was walking home, and I was walking home from my job, and it was late at night. And as I'm walking, I see this light. It's just blob. And it really had no shape. It didn't keep any consistent shape, and it just kind of floated overhead really nice and slow. And then kept going, and I could tell it was at a fairly low altitude. And so that was the second thing that happened. And, I think I was like a lot of people. I went and grabbed books, and I was going to read about this, and I was fascinated with it. You tell your friends stories, and some of them would go, "Oh, wow, I saw something one time," and, you'd launch into that conversation. Or you got this response, bullshit. Oh, I don't know. Can I say that on your show?
Well, we do. We will, I think maybe once or twice.
Okay. Okay. I will be sure to behave. And so, I feel like I'm like a lot of people who have some kind of sighting, if you will. I get tired of that word, or, experience, or whatever word you want to tag onto it. And I was just obsessed with it. And I just poured through books, and, we tried to find specials on it. And that's kind of where I got started at. And later on, I went to college and did all that good old stuff, and still had my interest in it. But I was more interested in physical stuff. You can sit there and say, okay, lights at night in the sky, a light here, something flew by here really quick, and I really wanted to get something a little more tangible, physical. And so, I had an opportunity to investigate. Of course, once you start getting into the UFO literature, you run into a couple of things. One of them is alien abductions, and then the other part of it is cattle mutilations. Mm-hmm. And during that time, those were still pretty big topics. And so I had gone and investigated a couple of these cattle mutilations. And some of the stuff I found was pretty intriguing. I think, I'd like to get one thing out of the way really quick, is that
Absolutely.
I don't believe that, I don't believe in like it's this or it's that. I really don't have an opinion on whatever it is. Some of it's man-made, some of it's unexplained. But, you get a lot of people out there going, oh, it's aliens, it's this, it's that. They live underground, they're here, they're there, they have bases on the moon, they have bases on Mars, and all this other, some of that stuff I just think is complete nonsense. So, I really wanted to focus on physical stuff. And as I went along, I kept having these really interesting interactions and experiences with people. And I didn't get my first real big wake-up call because, I'll just say it. I was pretty naive back then, as a lot of people are, because really, what are your sources of information back during those times?
Or
books.
Currently, right.
Or currently, books,
Right.
the internet. You're watching some special on TV and you're kind of one of those social contract people where, gosh, why would they lie to me about that, So, yeah, it had been very interesting. I really got my eyes opened up to a lot of the BS. We'll use that instead. A lot of the nonsense that was going on. I went to a UFO convention down in Los Angeles, and I met several people there, and I got to hang out at the bar and talk to some people, and some of the stuff they told me, I was just kind of like, wow, you're nuts.
Right.
You're a loon.
Yep.
Why would I want to be involved with this, anymore? So
do you think obviously there are people who have, that have mental issues. And that is, and to me, that's so sad that that they could come into this subject and then they're manipulated and it's just really not fair. But then, you've got other people that come into this, like myself, like you, and we're turning to the only thing that we can really turn to begin with, and that's ufology. And I will say, and I've said this a million times, the people that I held in high regard when I came into this are people that I have no respect for today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it's staggering. And it's staggering that people don't, it's like they've joined these cults. It's like this is a big social experiment, and this is more about having like a little club where you meet and have a barbecue or talk about politics or, talk about things like that than it actually is contributing to the subject.
Yeah, it's really interesting once you start looking and seeing, the little cliques that form and, certain personalities and how they're able to kind of ensnare a lot of people into believing what they're saying. Oh, there's so many of them. I don't know how long your show is. You told me a few minutes ago. I completely forgot.
2 hours.
Okay. That's not enough time. That's not enough time to have a really detailed discussion about, a lot of those personalities. There's just no way you could ever get through it in 2 hours. But needless to say that it's rampant. There is absolute nonsense out there that people are peddling and that people are believing, and the believers are peddling it. And there's just so much kookery in that field that it's just it just gets bizarre. Back in, I don't know, like 2007, 2008, I just had enough. I'd said no more. I'm done. I would rather go spend my time with sane people, so to
Right.
speak, and, and do other things that I'm interested in than waste my time. I poured a lot of my own money into, funding my investigations and, my time and everything else into it. And, I see some people that set out on this to get publicity, to get attention, to make money, to push their own paranoid fantasies on other people. And I was never interested in making money. I get requests from, newspapers occasionally. I used to get requests all the time from people if I could come to the area and speak. And I just said, no, I'm really not interested in doing it. I got an invitation for a couple conferences, and I just like, no, that's just not my thing. I went to one, and I had a really, really good time at it. And it was the, what is that? The McMinimans UFO Fest,
Right.
It was fun. I had a great time. They had an alien parade, and people were just having a great time. But outside of that, you just see all these publicity seekers and people that set out to get groupies, or they're looking to make money or whatever else. And, that was never my intent with any of the stuff that I've done ever.
Well, I think that's what separates those of us who care about the subject or coming from a genuine place, or those who are just, maybe they weren't popular in college or high school. And so now they can be, I don't know what, king of the nerds, maybe. And I'm being naughty. What can I say? I'll go to therapy after the show. But it's like, it's like you find people that want to be head of a group. And I know that when I've been to different conferences, I can't believe it when I see some of these people just sitting back like, look at me, I'm a rock star. Let me sign your book, and ladies on the left, and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, oh, for me, it's really interesting to go. I love speaking. I love having the opportunity, even though I'm probably on the blacklist a lot of places, but I love connecting with people who genuinely have been affected by this, and they're looking for the right information. And it breaks my heart to see so many people taking advantage of the goodness and sincerity of people.
Yeah. I'm on the same page with you. And when I had finally gotten to where I was like, wow, these people are phonies, and decided to start looking into their claims, my thought was, and very naively I might add, that I was going to be able to change the focus of the debate, that I was going to be able to finally say, look, these guys are idiots. Let's get rid of them and focus on something else. And like I said, very naively, that I thought that I could actually change the discussion and, probably have, in small cafes here and there, maybe, but boy, by the time, the mid, 2007, 2008, whenever that was rolled around, I had just had enough. I had gone through, gosh, let's see here. I've been stalked. I've been harassed. Somebody hired a private investigator to follow me around. I got sued once.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and it was just like, boy, at the end of it, I just thought, why am I really doing this? I knew why I was doing it, but the thought was, I want to continue doing this and dealing with all these idiots? No, not really.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. It's so. Do you know who hired a private investigator?
I do. Yeah, it was Sean David Morton. And for people that don't know who that is, he was a guy who got a lot of notoriety by being on the old Art Bell Coast to Coast program as, let me see, he claiming that he was a UFO investigator and a prophet and a psychic and, all this other nonsense. And I actually had met him at that one UFO Expo I went to in Los Angeles. And he's really short. He's not a very tall guy. I'm 6 feet tall. He's not a very tall guy, and he comes into this room, and I got introduced to him by somebody I was there with. And he has cowboy boots on, some kind of, like dress jacket, big medallion. He had long hair, and he's got these two girls with him. And it was just kind of like, oh yeah. And so I got an opportunity to ask him some questions because I had been kind of poking around with the idea of doing, exposing folks. And I wound up finding out that he had made this claim that he was a protege of Gene Roddenberry. Who, by the way, for people that don't know who that is, that's the creator of Star Trek. And he said he had created all this stuff for the next generation and worked on that program. And I had, asked him about that. And I said, well, I saw on the internet that there was a guy who said that he was the official biographer for Gene Roddenberry, and he's never heard of you. Whoa, that changed the conversation really quick to him being talkative and everything else to, hey, listen, nice meeting you. I got to go. Turn around and walked away.
Oh, God.
So I was like, okay. And so I started doing my work on him, and I actually talked to Roddenberry's official biographer several times. Very, very nice gentleman who gave me some really good advice on how to do it. And he said, listen, don't get into the nonsense of, the trap that so many people fall in, where they write and they wind up not focusing on the facts. He said, just go post the guy's claim, and then as fact, write whatever you found out about him, and make sure you document everything. He gave me some fantastic advice. And during this time, was I in college still? Gosh, I can't remember. I think I might have been in college still. And so that's what I did. And this, now you can easily find people and send emails and do that kind of stuff. Back then, I spent a lot of time on the phone tracking down things. And in the end, I wrote this, it was the Shameless Psychic and His Prophecy of Lies. And I thought it was pretty detailed, and I had all my supporting documentation and everything else. And I'd even asked him to comment on it, never heard back. And my web host, and you got to understand, though, the web was really still pretty new back then. And I had gotten a website, this fantastic, crappy piece of garbage website that I put together. It's so terrible, the web, and I've never changed anything on it. It's horrendous. And so, I put that up, and then my web host had called me, and he'd said, hey, listen, I just got served with papers, and it says Sean David Morton is suing us for libel. And at first I thought it was a joke. And he said, no, I'm being serious. And I was like, well, okay, I guess, I'll just hang out and wait and see what happens. And I got served. And I got served by the PI that he had hired to follow me around. And so anyway, I would love to say that, well, I wasn't scared at all, and I was very brave, and, whatever else, and be macho about it. But the fact was, boy, you get hit with a lawsuit, all kinds of things start going through your head. You're wondering about your house. You're wondering
Absolutely.
about your car, your finances, your partner, your kids if you have them.
Absolutely. And I hear that music, and I hate to cut you off right now, but we're going to take a quick break. I'm Erica Lukes here with Royce Myers. Stick around. The best is yet to come. I just had to say that for Libertas. Okay, we'll catch you after the other side of the break.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Toxins are everywhere, from the air we breathe to the food we eat and the water we drink. In a world where 80,000 known toxins and heavy metals threaten our very existence, how are you going to protect yourself and your loved ones? Introducing Pure Body Extra Strength, the world's first colloidal zeolite that helps trap and remove toxins as well as heavy metals from your body that are messing with your memory, clarity, sleep, and focus. Don't just take our word for it, or the testimonials from our thousands of happy customers. Check out the hundreds of articles and case studies on the National Institute of Health website proving zeolite's powerful ability to remove toxins. For a limited time, listeners to KCOR will receive 10% off their first order. To get started, go to trypurebody.com and enter promo code RADIO10. Again, that's trypurebody.com. Toxic junk is all around us, but now you can take back control of your health and protect yourself by detoxing with Pure Body Extra Strength. You'll be on your way to sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and feeling more energetic. Go to trypurebody.com right now and get started today.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
In the shadows, a voice cries out. Evidence evidence that you're not alone.
You said my name. What is your name?
Proof that the living and the dead coexist. Or do they? Every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, join writer, producer, and paranormal investigator Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio as he explores, interviews, and investigates evidence alongside some of the best in the paranormal community and beyond.
6 people killed.
Ghost Box Radio, Wednesday nights exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, because the dead don't sleep. Ghost Box Radio.
We interrupt to bring you this.
Would you like to advertise on KCOR Digital Radio Network?
This is what I'm talking about.
At a fraction of the cost of traditional radio advertising, why not?
Tell them the good news.
Whether you need to promote your next book, product, or service, we can customize a package for just about any budget.
Finally, there is hope for the hopeless.
Why limit yourself to a tiny local market when KCOR can brand you to the world?
Here's all you do.
Visit KCORradio.com or contact our sales department by email at saleskcorradio.com.
We want it now!
See the difference with us by letting us work for you.
This ain't reality TV!
The KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Are you ready to go?
It's showtime!
You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Bring this up.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, my friends. I'm Erica Lukes. Always happy to be here on KCOR, and I want to thank all of my supporters and listeners for helping me keep the show on such a wonderful network. I love it. I am here every week because of you and because I believe that I know that this subject is worth remembering, preserving, learning about, and somehow we have to figure out how to wade through all the garbage to get little bits of truth, and we're doing that together. So thank you. I am here with one of those people tonight that has actually had the fortitude to expose people and to stand up and do the right thing, even though he has received threats and he's been followed and all sorts of things, which sounds familiar. I've experienced those too. So I appreciate that. And I hope you go to UFOWatchdog.com just to look at that, get some of the backstory if you don't know about it. Royce Myers is here. And Royce, thank you again for being here. It's really fun, and people want to understand what to look for, and you're giving them great options, great ideas.
Oh, well, I hope so. I mean, like I said, I haven't done anything in a long time. I have a blog that I update here and there. But that's about it. I really haven't done any. I get emails all the time from people asking me, put this person in the Hall of Shame, or go investigate this person, or go do this. And, I just don't have the time anymore.
Can you just put one person in the Hall of Shame for me?
Who?
You know who.
Oh. I might.
Okay, I might have to twist your arm. I definitely want to talk a little bit about that later, because I think it's important for you to talk about some of the red flags that you saw when I started asking you about this individual. But let's get back to Sean David Morton, because this was a big deal.
Yeah, and so anyway, I got served the lawsuit, and like I said, I would have liked to have said I put on a very brave face about it, but I was terrified, I was starting a career, and let's see. No, I was out of school. Yes, yeah, I was out of school. I was working a job, and I'm starting a career, and I had just bought a house, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and then I get hit with that, and on top of that, my mother was dying, which was which was one of the hardest things. It was the hardest thing that ever happened to me in my entire life. And so, my wife and I were taking care of her, and I was working full-time plus, and then I had this going on. And so I really wasn't sure what was going to happen. And so what I did was I started looking for an attorney, and I found an amazing attorney in California. I don't know if she's practicing anymore. I haven't spoken to her in a long time, but her name was Carol Sobel. And she was a civil rights attorney who had taken on the LAPD, and, she was really, really well known in those circles. And so I had a conference with her, and she said, okay, well, tell me what's going on. And I laid it out for her. And she said, send me all your documentation. I'll get back to you in a day or two. Send her all my documentation. And she'd agree to take the case. So I was pretty happy about that. And so, long story short, all this Morton character had to do was walk into court and prove one thing that I had said about him was false. I mean, it's a pretty easy standard, right? And he couldn't even do that. And so the judge tossed it, and I think he had to pay my attorney like $16,000 or $18,000 or, some crazy number. But then it was all over, or so I thought. What wound up happening was he filed an appeal. And I talked to my attorney about it, and she said he has no legs to stand on. Don't worry about it. And the appeal went nowhere. And then I started getting bombarded with, emails from people. And that's a really funny thing about this whole field is that if you take up for something that you believe in terms of like me exposing this guy and then getting sued, boy, no one really wants to say much about it. They just want to talk about, he's getting sued. Oh, no, goodness gracious, this or that. But boy, after that, I had all the support in the world from a number of people. And so that was kind of crazy, too. I think it was the late Richard Hall had actually started taking up a collection for my defense. He was like one of the few guys that actually stepped up to kind of help me, which, I wasn't looking for it, but it was certainly
that
nice.
Is nice. Yes.
So anyway, the lawsuit goes away, and there's always, the three factors: your truth, my truth, and then the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And Morton went out telling his truth about, it was a technicality, it was this, it was that, the judge was against me, and there was just all these excuses. But simply in the end, he could not prove a single thing that he had said. And I became persona non grata on Coast to Coast AM for a while. I think, was I ever on there? I might have been on there one time. I think I was. But, regardless, there was still fallout from it, score one for Sean Morton, I guess. He wound up taking a lot of my valuable time that I would have rather been spending with my mom.
Right.
So. Oh,
that's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, yeah, that was a pretty crappy time in my life with all that going on. So anyway, the lawsuit, had gotten dismissed, and I thought that was the end of it, and by 2007, I just said, I'd had enough, and I kind of just drifted in and out here and there on the subject. And then I found out that him and his wife had been arrested and charged with fraud, defrauding the government, the IRS specifically, and they were both convicted, and he's in prison for 6 or 7 years, and that's kind of how that story ended.
Well, I know Greg Bishop. Greg Bishop was at his trial and things. Yeah. And when I look back at what both of you you went through, and then just read the profile of this person, it's like it is clear that he was a scam artist and delusional. at best. And it's like, I don't understand why big networks or why people would give him the time of day.
It's the entertainment factor. A radio host once said this. He said, ratings equal money. That's the big thing, is that it was entertaining at the time. Late night radio had exploded with Art Bell. There were other knockoff shows that that came about that had their own audiences as well. And I think that it was just an entertainment factor. As a matter of fact, there was one host from Coast to Coast AM that I had sent information to about Morton. And he said, well, if you prove it, I'll confront him on the air. I said, okay, here you go. That never happened.
Really?
So, yeah. So in the end, it's all about entertainment and ratings and selling commercials. And then on the flip side of that, it's about the guest getting attention and being able to be commercially viable and successful with whatever they're selling.
Wow. And that's, we all, when I was in this at the beginning, it's like I would have turned, to certain networks or people because I would think they would be doing their due diligence and getting, information out there that was good. But I think at the end of the day, like you said, it's about ratings. It's about making money, about keeping job security, and a lot of people, excluding people like George Knapp, who is an investigative journalist, but a lot of people that get into the radio side of things, they don't research this. They're being handed a list of questions that oftentimes the person that's on the show is giving, the radio show host. So they're not even doing the research, and I get it because they're on air 5 nights a week and yada yada. But there isn't. I spend hours and hours a week researching each of my shows. Of course, I don't get paid for it, but I care about the subject, and so it boggles my mind.
So let me ask you this: what is the most embarrassing UFO thing that you believe that turned out not to be true?
Oh God. I don't know if it's a thing necessarily or a person. I know that, let me think, and I wish I could think of, you've stumped me.
I'll tell you one of mine. Did you ever see this thing called Messengers of Destiny?
No.
So Messengers of Destiny was a documentary that was put out by Jaime Maussan and Lee and Britt Elders. Do you know who they are, Lee and Britt Elders?
I don't know who Lee and Britt Elders is, but I know who Jaime is. Yes. So
Lee and Britt Elders were known for promoting Billy Meyer junk. Way, way, way back when they were involved in this big documentary and this coffee table book that their company published and a lot of other things. And so Messengers of Destiny was, I want to say it was like 2 or 3 parts. God, it's been so long since I've seen that. But I remember getting a hold of that back in the day and going, whoa, what is going on here? Where they had all these UFO sightings in Mexico, and the word was that if you just went down to Mexico, you would see something guaranteed. There's all this activity, they're landing, there's all these contacts, there's all this, and I was like, what is going on here? But then later on, you feel a little embarrassed by going, wow, did I really believe a lot of that nonsense? And that's not to say that all the footage on there was nonsense. There are a couple of clips that you kind of go, oh, that's pretty interesting. But some of them you're like, that's a star, and you could see it. The big argument was there was one segment where it showed a supposed craft that was in the sky, and it was in front of the clouds. And they said, well, this can't be a star because you can't see stars through clouds. Well, I can't remember who did it, but someone went out and set up a camera and filmed a star through a cloud. And it looked just exactly the same. And I remember seeing that, man, and you feel completely embarrassed by it, But that's the thing. that's what happens when you take somebody's word for something. And they're saying, well, I've done all this scientific research and all this, and you can read about it in my new book coming out from X publisher next month or whatever else. You really can't be lazy. You have to go out and you have to find out things on your own. I mean, wow. Could you imagine if, well, we kind of are in a way that, people get a hold of a book and it has such an impact on them, or a documentary video, and they just don't generally question things because they're trusting, well, why would this person be telling me this if it wasn't nonsense,
Right.
So.
And isn't that sad? I mean, it's so, that is so, it's just makes me angry. Very clearly, I'll go to therapy and maybe a couple hours tomorrow or something and read a lot of self-help books tonight. I don't know what else to do, but I mean, just to see the deceit. And I've got to ask you this. Do you think that there are people that are inserted into the community to dole out disinformation? And how, if you do, how do we draw the line? How do we understand what's what?
That's kind of the whole conspiracy about disinformation in UFOs. I mean, a lot of that's kind of nutty stuff that people come up with, especially when they're trying to sell you something. Oh, look, they're feeding me disinformation to keep you from the truth and blah. I mean, probably the most well-known and best documented disinformation campaign in that topic is Richard Doty.
Right.
So did they do it? Oh, yeah, absolutely they do it. Do they do it to this day? Probably, but I don't know.
And I'm sure half the time they're just sitting back going, oh, my Lord. I mean, like I've heard a lot of people say, why would they need to do it when everybody's doing it,
I see. I was just
on a daily
basis. That. I was just going to say that, they have their own internal disinfo campaign happening with people and all their nonsense, feeding about, we could just go on and on and on about the number of nonsense topics out there. But
good.
Yeah, they do a very good job. And I'll tell you what, if I was in the intelligence community and I was ordered, go sow seeds of doubt here, here, and here, I would just say, I don't have to. They're doing it all on their own. And they a lot of people really are because of the nonsense that's out there.
Well, and I have to say that when I've got this great archive now and I've been looking back at the subject decade after decade, and there are religious groups, political groups that have inserted themselves into the narrative and have been feeding and manipulating energy, since the late 40s. And so to me, is it the government or are we really being manipulated by some of these groups?
I think that there's a lot of, how do I say this? Well, I think that obviously there's a lot of people manipulating the topic for whatever reason. But as far as disinformation campaigns or occults, occults are obviously the big one. If you are occults, God, what am I saying? Cults. There are a lot of nuts out there. And as far as there being an active disinformation campaign going on now, I don't know. I really can't say anything about that because I simply don't know.
I will say that from what I have gleaned from relentlessly looking at this for years, is there are different factions involved in this, and whether they have the backing of anybody in the government, I don't know. But they have inserted themselves into the field and created these networks to sow distrust, to gather data, and to tarnish and discredit the subject. And that is very real. I've seen that. It's been confirmed. And so I have to say now more than ever, people need to be really cognizant of where they're going on Facebook, the groups that they're getting pulled into. Mm-hmm. I've been pulled into a lot of different groups as of late. And some of these groups are they're being fronted by a person that appeared out of nowhere that has a fake name. And so it's like, holy crap, what is this? And I also have to say that, when you have people that they're out there, they're looking for UFOs, they're hanging out on the borders of military installations, which would not be my first choice. I don't know.
Definitely not mine.
I mean, it's like, give me a freaking break. And then they're, putting things all over the internet about what they're seeing on the borders. I mean, of course, there will be different countries that might be interested in infiltrating the community to learn what people are putting out there. So, I mean, to me, that's very real and concerning.
I think that certainly sounds feasible. Absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, it's never a dull moment. And it's like, how do you, you don't want to go down these conspiracy rabbit holes, which it's super easy to do. And so sometimes for me, just remembering what I've experienced and taking that and not putting anybody else's narrative on it is the best way that I can decompress.
Yeah, a lot of people wind up like I did. I just kind of got lost in a lot of things when I was first getting started without, really, oh, this is true. Oh my God, this is true. Oh, it's connected to this, Yeah, some of the conspiracy stuff that runs rampant in this topic is just, it's kind of crazy. There are so many, especially with the internet. Talk about the most wonderful and most horrendous piece of technology that's ever come out. That is a two-edged sword all the way around from start to finish. And, especially with YouTube, you get a lot of guys faking UFO videos now and faking that, they've got these contacts and this and that. And boy, some of that stuff can be fun. Don't get me wrong. You see somebody doing it for whatever reason, but their motive isn't to do damage or make money. They're just having fun with it. That kind of stuff. Yeah, okay, who cares? But once you start getting people that are making UFO videos, then saying that they have all these special contacts and, they're in there doing their editing and their photoshopping with stuff, it just becomes really damaging. And video itself nowadays, wow, you really have to question what you see. And, you see a bunch of UFO videos pop up and people say, oh, this is legit. Well, have you actually got the video? Do you have the original source of the video to look at? Do you know somebody, or are you qualified to really sit down, look at that video and determine whether it's legitimate or not?
Well, and with that said, not to be the devil's advocate, but I will. There are, I think there are hidden gems out there. I think that there are people putting things on the internet that are things we should be looking at, but it's so time consuming to weed through the, all the noise. And that's, when I was state director for MUFON here in Utah, that was the really interesting thing for me to wade through the CMS and blah blah blah. But I understood that there was something genuine and people were maybe missing how we could effectively address the topic or research. But I don't know. It's frustrating.
It is frustrating. It's maddening too. Where you see UFO conventions where you'd be like, wow, okay, well, that guy's got some credibility. That person, that lady has some credibility, but the other 95% of them are bogus. And it really gets frustrating because, the advent of the internet's great, but as far as exposure to people, a lot of people get exposure from those conferences, or they want to present their data. Where else can they really do it? Well, they can start a YouTube channel, blog, website, Facebook, whatever else they want to do, Instagram, I suppose. But in the end, those conventions and the lineups that they have of their quote-unquote UFO celebrities, that's what a lot of people get exposed to.
Right. Absolutely. And again, I don't know what. I think you look at people, oh God, I don't even know where to start. I'm so traumatized. There's just never, I don't know what. I feel sometimes, like like you do, it's just I should just throw my hands up in the air and say, okay, for the greater good of my mental capacity and my life, I'm just going to walk away and let people, do what they're going to do and self-destruct. But then I think about people like Barry Greenwood and Jan Aldrich and my heroes in the topic who have worked their whole lives to document the history and to do things that are important. And now more than ever, I feel like we're right on that edge, kind of that black abyss where it's like we could, all the data could disappear. We could go into the land of YouTube and Corey Good and the secret space program. And God, we got to talk about that later. But, and so I feel like we have to do something to get good information out because it will be lost forever.
Yeah, the Corey Good. Just give me a headache even thinking about that.
I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. That's all right. So, yeah, what are good avenues for getting that information out in a credible scientific way? I mean, those are the two big key words right there, credible and scientific, that I think get overlooked a lot by people who are peddling their nonsense. Of course, a guy like Corey Good, where's his evidence? He doesn't have any. Guys like David Wilcock, that push their nonsense off on people, or apparently, and I'm saying allegedly because I don't know if this happened or not, stealing other people's work and presenting it as their own. There's all kinds of just bad sources of information out there. And, it took me a long time to kind of really trudge through all that.
Well, and hopefully you can, after all of your experiences and the trauma that you went through and all the lessons that you've learned, I know that you can actually give us information and we can learn from that and hopefully move forward in a positive direction. I'm Erica Lukes here with Royce Myers. We're going to take a break and we will be right back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news. KCOR Las Vegas.
All the time.
Of course I listen.
I listen all day. It's the best music.
KCOR, the new underground source for news, talk, and music at KCORradio.com. Tell your friends, email them, or Facebook them, or Twitter them.
Hey, are we done here? Because I'm losing my buzz.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. I love spending every Friday evening with all of you here. You get in and you support the show and you mean the world to me. And tonight we have a special person in chat who's been on the show a couple times because he might be one of my favorite people in the world, Greg Bishop, who is author of Project Beta, the story of Paul Benowitz's national security and the creation of a modern UFO myth. And speaking of disinformation and manipulation, this is a book, if you haven't read it, you need to get. This should be one of the top. I mean, this is my top 5 of that and Clear Intent. Those books are must reads, especially if you're trying to navigate the murky waters of the UFO field. I am here tonight with somebody who's been trying to do that and has endured a lot of abuse doing that, and he has been doing this simply to get information out there about how easily the subject can be manipulated and how there are people in the subject who are really despicable human beings. And I've learned that. I've had shows about that as of late, about people lying about their credentials, bullying, intimidation. It's been one of those things. But Royce Myers is here tonight, and he has been accused of conducting or being connected with low-level government power, elite collaborative circles, and I mean, just, private group of debunking things. And there are debunkers. I mean, there are people that enjoy doing this. Absolutely. But you've had sightings. You understand that there's something important. And you also see, like some of us do, that there is, that people deserve good information and that they shouldn't be manipulated.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that you always hear that word, believe or belief. And you hear, I believe in X. Let's put UFOs in X. And I have a lot of problems with that. I kind of like the word convinced more than anything else. I'm convinced of X or A or C or whatever you want to throw in there. And being convinced for me is that there is a lot of evidence showing that something is happening, but I just don't think anybody really understands what it is. You'll have people talking about, disclosure. You'll have people talking about this, that, the other thing. But at the end of the day, I don't think anybody really understands what's going on. Whether they're promoting ET hypothesis. Let's try that again. The ET hypothesis, or they're saying that, these are actually government craft that you're seeing, or whatever they're promoting. At the end of the day, for me, it really comes down to, am I convinced enough by the evidence that I'm seeing that there's something going on that I can't explain and I don't believe some other people can explain? And I'm a yes on that. And that infuriates some people when I say that, because, I've gotten people that are like, well, you said it was aliens. I'm like, I've never said that in my entire life, ever. Well, I can't say ever. Maybe back in the day when I was very, just getting into it, naive, I was like, it's got to be aliens, but just nobody knows. So if you got somebody coming out and telling you, it's aliens and I can prove this, or it's interdimensional beings is another good one, or it's, creatures coming from inside the earth or the moon or whatever else, nonsense. No, I don't think anybody really knows what's going on.
No, and that's the thing. And I think that, for me, again, when I look back at at my archives or do research, it is very interesting to see how and where the extraterrestrial hypothesis was first put out there. Mm-hmm. And I think people need to be aware of that. And when you've got large organizations that are blatantly going out in a public forum and saying extraterrestrials are here. Hey, let's talk about the secret space program and all this stuff. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Let me tell you about a conversation that I had during this trip to this UFO convention down in Los Angeles. Was they had most of the big names were there, and I was at the bar, and so Whitley Strieber was there. I had an interesting chat with him. And Jaime Maussan was there. And Jaime Maussan was the guy that the Messengers of Destiny video that we were talking about earlier. He was the guy that produced that. And so I started having conversations with him about things that were going on in Mexico. And his English is great. You can understand Jaime just fine. And he knows what he's saying. He's an educated guy. He told me that all of the stars that we see in the night sky are actually UFO motherships. And I took it in and tried to keep a straight face and ask a question like, how do you know that? Well, because the stars move at night. And that's a no BS thing. That happened. He said it directly to me. There was no misunderstanding. There was no miscommunication. He said that to me. And I'm like, planetary rotation, maybe? The Earth goes around the sun, and we're in this galaxy, and stars, they move because, yeah. So that was one of the most shocking things I ever got told by somebody. And that was one of the other things. I won't say it was, yeah, you know what? That was really one of the big things that I heard that I was kind of like, wow, this guy's kind of nutty, isn't he?
And it's interesting, and I just have to throw this in here, and maybe I shouldn't, but when the Roswell slides debacle happened, I was working, for MUFON, and I was asked by MUFON to do the MUFON radio show, and I had to bring on Jaime because he was speaking at the MUFON symposium. Mm-hmm. And I spent, over a month, and I would literally talk to him almost every day. And he would share with me research that his scientists were doing with regard to the mummy and all of these things. And I never, and this is my honest opinion, I don't think that he felt that this was a charade. He believed in it. From what he was sending me, they were doing some incredible work. And the thing that was interesting to me is the fact that there was a group of people that before he even presented anything about the slides, that they went on social media to discredit him. And also this group of people, or a handful of these people, were involved in allegedly sending threats to the people involved in the Roswell slides. And that's a little known because everybody says, oh God, the Roswell slides and yada, yada, yada. But I was there. I had a different perspective about what was taking place. And that was, it's just something I have to throw out there because it was really interesting to watch.
Well, I'll say this. I think he's a gullible guy. I don't know him personally, but just based on everything I've seen, I think he's gullible. I also think he's a very good promoter.
Right. Absolutely.
He's an excellent promoter. And he has a huge audience down in Mexico. He's an enormous audience. The Reed UFO fraud. Are you familiar with that at all? Because some people aren't. So here we go back to late night radio, and a guy calling himself Dr. Jonathan Reed comes on and tells this pretty incredible story about him hiking out in the woods with his dog, and he came across a UFO and an alien, and the alien disintegrated his dog, and out of rage, hit the alien in the head with a stick, killed the alien, took it home, put it in a freezer after wrapping it in a blanket like a burrito, and actually the alien wasn't dead, and the alien had an interdimensional traveling device that he gave to this guy, and then suddenly people around him start dying. He's on the run from, the evil government and everything else. And just that the story, of course, is 110% bogus because the guy has never been a doctor. His real name's not even Jonathan Reed. And Jaime Maussan was telling people that he had this device examined and that his scientists found that it used nanotechnology and all this, but yet we never saw one single iota of proof of that.
And so this brings up a really good point that I think we need to drive home. People lying about their credentials.
Oh, that happens all the time. I go through sometimes and would read people's bios, and it's like reading a freaking book. It's just like, come on, what is going on here? And what they don't know, a lot of people don't know now is that, thank God for the internet, because a lot of that is very easy to verify now. you can go look up people who are maybe claiming to be in some military organization. You can go look up people who claim to have this degree or that degree, or they claim to work for this company. A lot of that stuff is very easy to find now. But back then it really wasn't that easy to find. But people should be very, very careful when doing their bios. Like I could make my bio 5 pages long, no problem. I can tell you all the certificates I've gotten through my job, all the training I've done, some cases I've worked on, this, that, the other. I mean, I could go on and on and on about that stuff, but what's the point? You want to give people a fair idea about your background and who you are. But at the same time, you don't need to write a bunch of nonsense and say, well, I've got this certification, or I've got this, or I've done that. And it turns out that a lot of people tend to really exaggerate their bios.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they do. And,
quite a bit.
And I think the thing that, of course, in my mind, and I'm sure you're picking up on my psychic vibe here, is Chase Kletzky and her, ever-changing bio that is getting padded, and these illustrious credits of working for the Department of Defense and training elite forces and all of this, and being a biomechanical engineer, and then another, post, you've got your NASA engineer and all these things, and it's like, okay, at what point in time does MUFON leadership do a background check? B, at what point in time do people in the community have a brain and they're able to say, wait a minute, really, most people that are this connected don't need to advertise it.
Right. And especially if you have an organization that is investigating something that is a pretty spectacular, extraordinary topic like UFOs, and you have someone in your organization that is one of the, upper echelon members and is in charge of investigations. And I don't know if this lady's falsified anything. I've been reading quite a bit about, allegations that she has. And the easiest way to put all that to rest is to put up or shut up. It's one of the two. But in the end, the organization really should be responsible for vetting those people thoroughly. And let me tell you what, it is not that hard to do background checks on anybody nowadays. It's very easy to do.
And that's been the thing. I think people, and I've had several over the past few years that have been giving me bits and pieces because they've dug in to this person's background. And the only thing that you can find literally is a certification for aerobics instructing. And other than that, and also, she was a registered lobbyist, but is not any longer. And so, at what point in time, do we say, do we have standards, and do we as individuals involved in this topic that is like the freaking Wild West? At what point in time do we say this is what we're going to deal with, and we have the right to ask these questions? It's been funny since Phil Leach came on my show. He's been on the show twice, and I have to say again that I just have a lot of respect for him, and he will be remembered for a long, long time for coming forward and doing the right thing and exposing a lot of corrupt behavior. But I think that we just have, I don't know. It's how do we become responsible? And I've watched as Phil has been defamed. I've looked at my YouTube posts, and people are saying, shame on you, you're a gossip queen, and all of these things. And it's like, holy crap, because you're asking questions that any critical thinker should be asking.
Right. Yeah, and that's a thing with I guess you call it the field, I suppose. The problem is that nobody's accountable to anybody. They're not. Nobody's accountable to, do we have a UFO police department? No. Do you have an ethics and standards department? No. Do you have a professional No. They don't have any of that stuff. And that's part of the problem, and you're never going to have it. You're never, ever going to have it. It's never going to happen. The only thing that you can really do is, if you're really interested in this topic, is to delve in, Don't give any of the con artists or the people who lie or the people who cause a lot of problems in the field, don't give them any of your attention. Move past them and move on. And the other part of that is that make sure that you're doing the right thing. Make sure that you have credibility. Make sure that you're not out there promoting some, a nonsense case without thoroughly looking at it. I mean, that was the motto of the website too, was that I try to drive home was don't trip on your open mind. It's fine to have an open mind, but don't fall in the pit while you're checking these things out, as a lot of people really do. I see a lot of investigators out there who have been in the field for a long time, and you see some of them are very consistent and concise and do what they need to do. And then you see others who started out great, investigating cases, being scientific about it, presenting their facts. But then later on down the line somewhere, wow, they just fell off the rock and have just gone on to espouse nonsense stories that you can't even verify. That's the other thing, I mean, I like cases that you can actually verify stuff with. That you can go out and see and look at and touch and, examine. And that's my big thing.
That is the most refreshing thing I've heard pretty much my entire life. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, what are you going to do? You can start. I mean, when you see phonies, I think that it is your duty as someone who is serious about the topic to step up and say, hey, here's my problem with what you're saying. That person can come back and give you a good answer with some evidence, then you're solved. But if they can't, or they continue that, I mean, if you run into somebody that is clearly in this to sell books, movie deals, TV, whatever else, or to fulfill their own paranoid delusions, then, you have an obligation to tell people about that person.
Exactly. And for me, it's been stunning to see that 99.9% of the people involved in this don't have the moral fortitude to freaking stand up and do the right thing.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is you see it all the time with research. I mean, I've had some researchers defend things that I've thoroughly proven are not the legitimate thing, only because, not because they have information about the case, it's because one of their friends is involved in it or has been the person that's promoted it. I've seen that happen. And, that's part of the problem, is that people don't want to ruffle other people's feathers, especially those who are out there making a living off of this stuff. They don't want to, I almost said a bad word, sorry. They don't want to ruffle feathers. They don't want to cause problems, because really, if a researcher who is well-known came out and said about X researcher who is very, 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 very well known, then I think they're afraid of being ostracized from the convention circuit, because that's where a lot of people make their money that do this stuff.
I clearly have been, and I'm quite okay with that, because I would rather hang out in my place and spend the evening Skyping Barry Greenwood or people that have something of merit to say than going and having some big social club for, I don't know what, for just promoting false beliefs. I've never, and you haven't either, and it's like it's never been my goal to get involved, at that level. And if I can do a show, or if I have an opportunity to get out there and hopefully try to do something good, then that's great. But it's not, I have a day job, I have a life and a family, and I don't need to be number one on that circuit.
No, most certainly not. Yeah, no thanks. The other part is that if you have a belief and later on you find out that it was just silly, that you have other information or you really weren't thinking it, you have to just say something about it. Don't be afraid to come out and just say, I was wrong. Sorry. I've had friends of mine throughout the years that know about, my interest in the UFO topic, and that we'd had discussions where I'd said X, Y, or Z, and then later I've just gone, sorry about that. I guess I'll never say that again. Yeah, that was pretty dumb. Yeah, I wasn't being very smart, was I? Or whatever else.
But it's a big learning process, and that's the thing. I mean, all of us who are objective should be able to say, God, yeah, I clearly that was not the right approach, or things change and you grow, and hopefully you learn more and are willing as a human being to say, okay, yeah, I accept the fact that I'm fallible and this subject is completely nuts.
Yeah, there you go. It's just like I don't know, let's, the Billy Meyer case.
Right.
You can just take that as an example of, boy, when I first saw the video and the books, I was blown away. Wow, but later on in life, after I was able to poke around and get a little bit of more information, I was like, oh, okay, maybe not then.
I think probably a lot of people were as well. I think it is interesting to look at Billy Meyer and to look at some of his belief systems and the people that he had around him, and didn't he have quite an extensive FBI file?
I don't know about that, but wow, you talk about cult of personality. That guy roped in and continues to this day to rope people in with his it's just unbelievable that's even still going on. I think most people in UFO circles are pretty aware that case is not the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's not. It's a joke. And I know that there are people who have reproduced videos and sounds and all kinds of other stuff that it's just too much evidence to say otherwise. It's nonsense. But wow, that guy sure keeps roping them in.
But and now here you've got YouTube, and you've got people with that have managers behind them, and they can produce great videos, and yeah. So we've got to talk about that a little bit when I get back. I'm Erica Lukes here, and stick around. I'm with Royce Myers. We've got our last break. We'll check you out on the other side.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Vegas, baby!
Vegas' #1 source for talk and new music.
How cool is that?
1 million miles till midnight. A story of timelines, artificial worlds, simulated races, and the galactic imprint, and the destiny of a blue world called Earth. 1 million miles till midnight, written by Solaris Blue Raven, is a journey through the mind's eye, which allows the reader to surf a wave of technological and multidimensional intellect, revealing a bridge between conscious design and the truth. A multidimensional bleed-through awakens the world of artificial intelligence to set sail into the frontiers of a vast multiverse, morphing planets and terraforming ascended worlds beyond the linear programs of a fated race. 1 million miles till midnight will awaken, inspire, prepare and enlighten one to the many multidimensional states of consciousness and worlds we reside in. With every cell and atom, we are this truth and multiverse. 1 million miles till midnight. Written by Solaris Blue Raven. Available now at Amazon.com. Don't wait. Get your copy today.
There is a world outside that which we live in, a realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix.
The Paradigm Matrix.
Hosted by Willie Miranda, every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very room.
The 1-hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole.
The Paradigm Matrix
Explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about. At least, not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
1, 2, 3, 4! To the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds. Love the music. I listen all day.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to another enlightening show on UFO Classified. It is, I love doing this, and every week I bring on people who can inform us and give us information, and is all very relevant to what's taking place. My guest this evening, Royce Myers III, he has been relentlessly for a long time trying to get information out about people that don't have the best motivations in the subject. And that is a very lonely and difficult task to do when you've got a field laden with delusional people and people who are trying to make money and organizations that are corrupt and not doing the right thing. And we were mentioning or talking about on break, I mentioned the fact that there are good things that we have to, as much as there's all this crap, there are things like Norway, Project Hestelin, where you can focus on 35 years of an important scientific study. Or you can go to Project 1947, Jan Aldrich's site, and look at the history, or Fran Ridge, or any of these people. And there are good, important things we should focus on. But in the meantime, we're just going to talk about corrupt behavior and make sure people have a good idea about that. And I want to just say, Greg Bishop just called in. So, Greg, if you're there, welcome to the show. I think that both of you know each other. Because you've Royce, you've been on Radio Mysterioso.
Yes.
Before, so Greg, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
Pretty groovy. Nice to hear your voice.
Yeah. Yes. Nice to hear both your voices. I was listening to you talk about MUFON and what's going on with that, and I wanted to know, both of you, either of you, do you think there's a future for that organization, or should it just be basically thrown out and started over?
My opinion is really simple. They need to start completely over. That organization has really had a lot of ups, but it's had way too many downs. And if I was gonna rebrand them, I would do it as an entertainment company and call it good. That's not to say that the people that are field investigators for the organization or have other responsibilities in the organization aren't good people. I'm just saying that their leadership has been pretty negatively impacted over the years, and the fact that they have a channeler giving them money and potentially calling the shots as a donor for the organization, that's nonsense.
Well, and then you could throw in the fact that they are openly condoning hate speech. and all sorts of other things.
Because
and the executive
of money.
director, exactly, and you at some point in time, as anybody on the board of directors or the executive director or communications director should be very clear about what an organization will not tolerate, and that is hate speech, that is sexual harassment, any of these things, and yet they completely won't do that, and it's shocking.
Yeah, if I had somebody in my organization pull any of that nonsense, they'd be gone. There wouldn't be any ands, ifs, or buts. It would be out the door.
Yeah, well, that's what everybody does when that happens. I mean, when it was first announced, and I think Jan Harzan or Roger Marsh put up something saying, "Who's worse, the haters or the people doing?" And every single person kind of went, "What?" And my comment was, every other organization, every organization in the world that has this kind of thing happen says, this person does not reflect our values, and they have been asked to leave. Every single one, except MUFON.
If that happens at a 7-Eleven with a clerk, they fire them.
Yes, immediately. So,
right.
Well, but
yeah.
To be positive, I talked to a couple people right after Phil Leach put out his first letter, and I said, "What are you going to do?" And they said, "We quit. We're going to." I said, "What are you going to do after that?" And they said, "We're forming our own group." And I said, "Yes, exactly. Go form your own group and do something. Do something worthwhile."
The last report I got, they were down to 300 investigators, even though they're promoting that they've got a huge investigative force. But when you look at the website, you look at how many state directors they have. They've got a handful of people that are state directors, and they're not in the same state.
I think one of the constructive things that I would say about being a field investigator for that organization is, all they have to do is read the manual and pass a test. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
See, there's something fundamentally wrong with that right away.
Yeah. Well,
elaborate on
problem,
that. Go ahead, Greg.
I bitch and moan, but the thing is that the horrible part of this is that the vast amount, part of the membership, this is this is how they get together, talk about this, hear people that are doing work with it, do their investigations and all that. It's their only outlet. So at first I said, well, just get rid of it. But you can't really do that because you're going to set all these poor people adrift. So, yeah, some kind of radical reorganization is probably good, like Royce said.
And I think, I think, too, that the more, in fact, I was watching a video from MUFON, Texas, where they had some people on the board and a couple other people there, and they were talking about distrust in the government and the deep state and things that to me were, what does this have to do with a scientific organization? And at some point in time, is this organization fostering belief systems that could be dangerous to other people involved in the field?
Yeah, the kind of deep state, disinfo, this, great. If that's what you're into, good for you. But if you really want to move on in this topic is to go about it scientifically. That's the whole thing. That's just at the root of the whole problem, is that everybody wants to get involved in these conspiracies because, listen, let's be frank, they're kind of sexy, right? People love to get involved in those stories. Like, oh, wow, this is really intriguing. Oh, that happened. Oh, this guy's, and I get it. I totally get it. But wow. The other thing we have to remember, too, is the people that are pushing those, you got to really kind of see what kind of frame of mind they're in or where they're at in life, too.
Yeah, well, they don't care about finding out doing research into the topic. They care about all the other things having to do with their ego, etc. And I think the question they should be concentrating on, besides gathering data, is what causes UFO reports. Not where do they come from, anything like that. What causes the reports? I think if you follow that question, you can get a lot of good research and further questions out of it.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing, is to focus on those. Don't go espousing that, well, it's this, it's that, it's ETs, it's, I'm channeling this alien. Nobody needs to hear that nonsense, especially when you can't 100% prove it. Move on.
Yeah.
I mean, believe what you want to believe personally. I don't have a problem with that. But when you start crossing that line between belief and proof, that's where kind of the problem starts to come in. And a simple approach to the whole thing, I think, is the way to really go, is to really to move. That's the only way that you can really move forward in this whole thing. You can hear me go blah, 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 because I'm getting a little frustrated with, all the stupidity that I've experienced in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, and Greg, now that you're on the phone, I mean, give us your thoughts, because both of you worked on the Sean David Morton thing, and I cannot imagine how disturbing that was for both of you to see what took place.
Well, Greg had a front row seat at the trial. I didn't.
It was gratifying.
When you see just desserts get handed out, yeah, it is. I mean, listen, I feel sorry for the guy, because prison is not the best place to be.
Exactly.
That's the word on the streets anyway. I've never been to a prison, thank God. But, the impact of his life and his wife's life and their families. And, of course, especially the people that got defrauded and all that stuff. I mean, people lost their life savings. Desperate people were getting preyed on by that nitwit. So in that sense, he's right where he needs to be as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, me too. And like you said, you must feel compassion for everyone, including his wife, who during the trial, especially in the sentencing, she really distanced herself from her husband. She just finally said, "No, that." Yeah, she said, "That's it. I don't. I was led astray, and I'm not gonna." I realized I was led astray, and she got a ever so slightly less severe sentence with that contrite attitude than Sean Morton did with his defiance to the end. He was trying to bring more evidence up during the sentencing, and the judge stopped him and said, "Mr. Morton, this is the sentencing. The trial's already over. You can't introduce any more evidence."
Yeah.
So apparently he's online saying that he was railroaded and the government is terrible, and all the things that he's probably saying.
To this day, he is still saying that nonsense, and his goal is to be a martyr when he gets out, so he can go back to making money. It's pretty obvious. At least that's how I think it is.
Yeah, yes, and he will be watched closely. It was just fascinating to see, and he defended himself, which is a whole nother level of strangeness going on. So it was, and you can't record anything or anything like that. So I happened to have a piece, said one piece of 8.5 by 11 paper with me. And I wrote extensive notes in 1/8-inch high letters just so I could get it all on there. And I was only there for about 2 hours. And he kept calling the IRS jackbooted thugs, and the judge kept telling him to stop doing that, or he'd be held in contempt.
I read a lot of the transcripts, and it sounds like he was quite the defendant to have in court.
He was entertaining for the jury.
Well, and I have to ask both of you, because there were people and networks that supported him and gave him a platform. Have any of those people or networks, have they ever come out and made a public statement about that after he got convicted?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I have not heard of any doing that whatsoever. Not any of the conventions he went to, not the conspiracy crews, and any of those people. And I don't think they want to be associated with him, even to apologize, which I guess is understandable. But just to give people an idea that they're serious, that maybe they should do that. But I don't think many of those people want to give the idea that they're pushing away any type of information that might get people sitting in seats at the convention or going on the cruise or whatever by repudiating anybody they've ever had before. So I don't think that's going to happen, and that part of the show is going to continue, which is why I have those "Do Not Engage" T-shirts. I really don't.
Can you send me 5 more of those?
Yeah, I really don't think I don't think those people. I think it's interesting and good to call this out, but the very small part of my time is spent, trying to see who's a fraud. I don't care. All I care about is what I'm interested in, and not Corey Good or Steve Greer or any people like that. It's that those people are useless to me, and they should be useless to. I liked what Royce said earlier. Ignore those people. And ignore that element and concentrate on the stuff where people are doing good work. I really enjoyed the SCU conference. I had a couple of problems with a couple of things they were saying, but in all, Rich Hoffman and his friends are really trying to make a difference. So that I admire.
Well, and you, Greg, we've had this conversation before. It's like each of us has different ways of approaching this, and your focus is that, and my focus is because for me, I have had personal experiences, and I've seen other people that have been really, really hurt by this behavior in the field and lack of ethics and professional standards. And so, to me, my mission is to expose that. I mean, like Royce, and to make sure that people coming into this field have an understanding of how to look critically at what the information is being given to them, so they know where to go.
Right. I did not mean to demean anybody.
No, I know that. No.
It's just me personally, I don't spend too much time with it. Are there other people waiting to talk? Because I don't want to be rude.
No, you're not. And I think the thing that I love, and like I've mentioned about you, is that we both have different roles in this. And I wish sometimes that I could be more like you, and then just focus on all of the great things that are taking place. And I don't know, but I always appreciate
everybody does what they can. And the fact that Royce put up the Hall of Fame and Shame and all that from a long time ago, I looked at that very carefully. I did not know a lot of these things. I didn't know about all these, many, many, many different frauds and what they were doing. That was useful information to me. I couldn't have done it, but I think it's incredibly valuable that he did.
So let me ask you, because we're getting ready, to wrap up the show, both of you, who are the people that you admire and that you would recommend other people getting into the subject look at?
Greg Bishop.
Me too.
There are a lot of good people out there in that field, and name names. I don't always agree with them, but I think George Knapp's done a wonderful job. I mean, over the years of presenting it as a journalist, and a lot of the stuff. Now, some people are going to give me crap over that, but I think that he has presented the subject in a more credible way than anybody else ever has.
Yeah, he's pushed it in a way that, whether you agree with him or not, a lot of what he does is to put that information in front of people. They can make the decision that they want. And, I don't know about right now at this moment. I keep going back to, the standards like Hynek and Valet and John Keel and one person that's actually still working but hasn't written anything on it in a while. Not too many people know about it, is Greg Little. To me, he was like Dr. Greg Little. He was basically taking that Keel and Valet stuff and updating it when he wrote his books in the 1980s, I believe, People of the Web, and he had one other one. People should check that one out. But good work to me are people that are making us think differently about this. There are a lot of them in that Reframing the Debate book I was involved in.
That's a
Mike
great
Cleland,
book, by the way.
Yeah, Mike Cleland and Chris Rutkowski and Micah and Robert Brandstetter and Miguel Romero, all the people in that book, I think they presented things that are either new or basically things that have been generally ignored for a long time and should be brought up in front of the community and really in front of the public if it can be, because the more people that have different ideas, I think the better you have you have a better pot stewing where some better understanding can come out of it.
I'll tell you this right now
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally cut you off, my friend.
No, that's okay. Go right ahead.
I was going to say that if you read a book about UFOs, the UFOs Reframing the Debate book is essential reading. I can't recommend that book enough. Yeah, it's a fantastic read, and if you're getting into this topic and are interested in it, it's required reading as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's kind of where things are now, I think, at least as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that won't agree with me, but the authors in that book all have a very specific idea of what the study of ufology, or whatever you want to call it, the study of UFOs could be, should be, and is in some places right now. And that to me, the variety of viewpoints in that book is refreshing. There were even people that believed in the ETH in the book. I mean, people say, oh, it was an anti-ETH book. No, it wasn't, actually. It was a pro, let's think of other things that may be just as valid.
It's a great book. And yeah, I do have to just throw this out there. There is a person that did write a chapter that has not been incredibly nice, or I don't think does the best research. I just wanted to throw that out there just because. But
that's true. There are people I know that I don't agree with at all, but I'm friends with. There's also, people that the debate between all these people is, I think, was what's important. And even if I know people that are skeptical, I don't agree with them all the time. Sometimes I violently disagree with them. But every once in a while, they'll show me something that I didn't know before, and I wasn't paying attention to because I was too narrowly focused on something. And it's painful sometimes, but I don't want to be deluded. I don't want to delude myself.
So where are the people that wrote the chapters and contributed to that? And could we get some sort of, I think we should do a radio show about the reframers and trying to get that information out there, because now we're seeing a new faction of people that have injected themselves into the UFO narrative who, I don't know what's going on there, but I think it's important to bring back people that have important things to say. And like you say, that book is important on many levels. So what do we do? Can we make that happen, Greg?
On your show, I will talk to those people, or you can write. You've had some of them on already. You've had Miles Lewis and me, and God, who else have you had on that's in that book? Have you had Micah Hanks on?
Sue. I haven't had Micah on. Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan, you've had on. So there's a lot of people in that book that you've had on, but yeah. I think it'd be good, and I'm talking too much, and your guest is Royce.
No, I don't mind.
No, it's fun to hear both of you talk. And Royce, what are your plans now? Are you just kind of done with this? Would you add somebody to the Hall of Shame? Would you be willing to add a couple people to the Hall of Fame?
I don't know at this point. It's kind of, I've got to go back and actually look at that website. I haven't looked at it. I just now pulled it up because I haven't looked at it forever, because I haven't updated it in years. And some people don't realize that for a time, I let other people run the site, and I had nothing to do with it. So some information in there, not all the information in there is from me, but some of it is from a couple of contributors. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. There are some things I'd like to go out and do a little field research on that I'm really interested in at this moment, and so I think that's probably the most immediate thing.
And so, can you give us any more information on that?
I can say Utah, and call it good.
Well, if you come to Utah, you better be, let's at least go to lunch.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I posted on my Facebook page just to gauge interest. I said, and I phrased it that asking for a friend, if someone started a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter for a field trip to Utah to investigate a ranch, would anybody donate to it? So. We'll have to see,
Well, I think Greg would love to come out, and I'm sure Nick Redfern. I've got a bunch of people that would come out, and maybe we could do something to get Chris O'Brien. And I will tell you that I could take
Chris
it places.
Yeah, stick him in the researcher pile that we were talking about earlier. Definitely Chris O'Brien.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things, even in the surrounding area, if you don't even get on the ranch, so many things that are important that are overlooked by people because they're obsessing on Skinwalker Ranch. But I would love to give you a tour.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. Yeah, and I wouldn't mind going out there for a few weeks and just hanging out.
Well, I would love that. So, Greg, let's put that. Well, Greg, you're going to be here, and my gosh, you're going to be in southern Utah in a couple months, speaking at the Utah UFO Festival, so that'll be fun.
Yes, yeah, I'll be there then. I'll see how long we can stretch that one out. We'll see.
I know that'll be fun. And thank you again for Greg Bishop, for you calling in, and then for Royce Myers for coming on, because you don't usually do this. I heard you on Greg's show, and I've watched your work for years at UFOWatchdog.com. And like I said, when I first saw it, I was thinking, who is this guy? And perhaps I was a little paranoid, thinking that this guy is a debunker, and the more I've learned about this subject, the more I respect what you've done, and I understand that you're doing this for the greater good and the integrity of the subject, and I encourage everybody out there to be critical, to make sure that you're not going to YouTube to find out answers to all of this, and make sure you also know the Facebook groups that you're getting pulled into, because chances are they are manipulating your belief systems and collecting data. I'm Erica Lukes. Have a wonderful night. Stick around for Willie Miranda, and we will catch you next week.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting